Well, the sausage is being made up in Lansing. It is budget time, and for the party in power, that means that they're going to be jamming up the other side with their priorities, and that in some ways the minority will be on the outside looking in. But what's happening with the road budget is, in the minds of many, an outrage, because the Democrats appear to be burying the long-held formula for doling out the road dollars and are really using a partisan metric for doing it. Let's learn more about it. We bring in our good friend, Representative Matt Hall, Republican of Richland Township. Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, Guy.
So tell me what's happening that's different than last year's. I mean, we always know there's the carping about, well, they're not including us in these discussions, and that, seems to be pretty much par for the course. But in terms of how the pie is being divvied up when it comes to road dollars, what's happening?
Sure. Well, I think you know that right now we have the biggest surplus we've ever had in state history. We started out the year with a $9 billion surplus. This budget spends, the House Democrat budget spends $81 billion. That's bigger than Governor Whitmer's budget, which spends $80 billion, and they're negotiating what they're going to do. I started 4 years ago. We spent $57 billion, so that gives you an idea. And we have a consensus revenue estimating conference next week where we all understand they're going to tell us we have less than that. So we're spending more than we have, and then they'll work it out. But to answer your question about local roads, for decades, Michigan has had a local roads funding policy that distributes that funding based on lane miles across the state. And what the Democrats are proposing to do is to change that allocation and spend it mostly in their districts. So how do we take the money and how do we spend it in Democrat districts? And the most insulting part of it is, like I said, we have a $9 billion surplus, and I think they proposed something like $400 million to go to local roads. And so if we're ever going to fix the roads, which was Governor Whitmer's platform, we could spend that $9 billion to do that, but we're only putting forward $400 million. And of that, in this proposed budget, they use a new formula, which basically sends it to Democrat districts, mostly near the city of Detroit. And that's unacceptable.
Well, let me ask you, because folks might be saying, well, I don't know, basing it on population makes sense because those are the roads that get the greatest wear and tear. That makes sure that the dollars go back to the greatest number of people. But in terms of keeping pavement maintained, it doesn't really always work that way, does it?
Yeah, so the way I would describe this is a couple of years ago, Governor Whitmer went it alone, and she borrowed a lot of money. I think it was $1 billion or more.
It was $2 billion.
Yeah, $2 billion. So she borrowed money to fix roads that were the roads mostly based on population. Now they were state roads, but they were mostly based on this idea of population. If you look, the roads that really are not being addressed and are not getting fixed are the roads that are located, not the highways, not the major state roads. They're the roads that are in townships across our state.
Right. Whether
those are townships near me in Kalamazoo, or whether those are townships near you in Oakland or Macomb County. And those are the roads that this formula that I support are designed to help. The roads that she wants to help are the roads that are largely getting the attention already under the bonding.
I want to dial back because you said something that knocked my socks off as you opened up this discussion, which was when you came to the legislature 4 years ago, the budget was $57 billion. Now it's $81 billion. I just did the numbers on the back of the napkin here. That's a 42% increase in just 4 years. How the heck is that justified?
Well, you're right, and that's why myself, the House Republicans, and the Senate Republicans were championing an income tax cut. We said with a 40% increase in our budget, let's give some of that money back to the taxpayers. Now, we succeeded in accomplishing that, but Attorney General Dana Nessel came in and said, I'm going to interpret that tax cut as only 1 year. And so now we're going to have to go to court to fight the Democrats to make sure that's a permanent tax cut. But that's only a $700 million tax cut. And I'll tell you, we've had to fight tooth and nail to get it done. The income tax will drop this year from 4.25 to 4.05. But it's that hard to do that when I just explained to you how much our budget is ballooned. It's incredible.
So I understand, too, that there's an awful lot, there's a showdown on another part of this budget, and that is how law enforcement dollars will be spent. I think it was back in February that the governor announced that there was going to be a surge in spending aimed at recruitment, retention, and in some cases, equipment. But how that pie is getting divvied up is causing some heartburn as well. Can you tell me what's happening?
Sure. So what the House Democrats proposed was, let's spend, and I don't have it in front of me, but it was several $1 million to fund unarmed police, which are basically social workers in Wayne, Washtenaw, and Oakland County. So they had this huge budget increase for these unarmed social workers. And what we're proposing is let's fund $100 million for our local police and give them the grants, the ones that are armed, to make sure they have the armor they need to be safe, the supplies they need, and everything else to fund our local departments. So that's largely what the debate is between the Republicans and the Democrats.
Well, why
why
not give them the grants and say to the local law enforcement, look, you folks do this wherever the need is greatest and however you can be most effective? Instead of just saying the only thing you can spend this on is basically, as you say, a glorified social worker, which can, in many instances, be helpful in some situations. But that seems such a narrow way to support law enforcement.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what our grants do. They support the departments. What the Republicans are proposing, apply for the grants, and what your departments need, we're willing to do. Democrat budget is only proposing increases for these unarmed social workers, as they describe it. That is what, when they talk about defunding the police, that's what they mean. Mm-hmm. Let's turn police into social workers. Let's take away their guns. And I would not want to be one of those unarmed social worker police working in Wayne County. I just wouldn't. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting the police as we understand it, and not this social experiment that the Democrats are proposing.
I trust sheriffs and I trust chiefs to deploy these people in the safest manner and to make sure they're not cannon fodder. But the idea, again, it gets back to local control. And I know that's something that's very important to you. And I also know transparency is very important. We saw in 2022 this kind of $1 billion binge that Craig Mauger in the Detroit News documented. Are we going to see a repeat of that again, or are we going to mandate that if you've got an appropriation you're seeking, you got to put your name on the bill and you got to justify it?
Well, I'm the minority leader in the House, and I'm 2 votes away from being the Speaker. And I think we'll take the House back in 2 years because the Democrats have overreached so much. But I'll just say this. I knew if I was going to be Speaker that you would have had to put your name on it because these people, they insert these projects at the last minute in the middle of the night, mm-hmm. and you don't know what they are, and that's not the right way to do it. I'll just say there are projects in there now. They're all Democrat projects, but these are not the projects to be worried about. They're bad, but the ones that are going to be terrible are the ones they sneak in the middle of the night.
Well, I know you'll do your best not to let that happen. Matt Hall, thank you.